Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today and welcome to the Elder Scrolls 6 Wishlist series, a series designed to help dictate the future of the Elder Scrolls franchise. Every Thursday, or at least we try every Thursday, at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we sit down and go through your comments, helping decide where Bethesda should take the Elder Scrolls franchise. What should they take inspiration from, what should they learn from past mistakes, and so on. This week, we're focusing on weapon and armor degradation, which was neglected in Fallout and really has a good place in the Elder Scrolls franchise. I know weapon and armor degradation is a bit of a polarizing topic because some people find it just to get in the way, some people think that it becomes more monotonous than an actual game mechanic, but some also like that challenge of constantly keeping track of all your weapon and armor. Today's episode was inspired by Sam E.G. What about weapon degradation? But maybe instead of weapons actually breaking, they just reach a low point and you have to travel to a city to sharpen them at a grindstone, and the higher your smithing skill, the more you can repair your weapon per ingot to use to repair it. Or if that's too annoying, maybe when you improve a weapon at a grindstone to like legendary or epic, they can gradually decrease to no improvement and you have to go and improve them again. So one form of degradation that's always been in the Elder Scrolls franchise is when you enchant a weapon, and as you progressively use that, the enchantment goes away, forcing you to use soul gems to restore that enchantment. I always like that because the enchantments in Elder Scrolls can get pretty OP and also send weapons completely over the top from just a standard blade or whatever weapon you're using to something entirely different. But what about the weapon and armor you're using and how that can just naturally degrade? I've always found that Dark Souls handled weapon and armor degradation very well. If you swing and you hit a wall, that's going to do a lot of damage to your weapon itself, and you're going to want to keep good track of that and not just carelessly swing around. Like I said, I know this is a bit of a polarizing topic because, for example, in Fallout 3, I felt that weapon repairs became more of a tedious thing where I pick up another extra gun, repair my weapon even though it's barely used up anyway, and move on with my day. Whereas in the beginning of these types of Bethesda Game Studios games, it's an intense process. You got to really keep track of things. You have about like a quarter of your hunting rifle left and you're trying to make it last until you find one more hunting rifle to bump it up with your repair skill. But then you get to the late game, your repair skill is basically fully upgraded. You can repair your weapon whenever you want. It's not really a big problem anymore and it becomes more of a tedious thing rather than a actual intriguing game mechanic. Like I said in the beginning, I feel this has a good fit in the Elder Scrolls franchise. We can actually see this in Elder Scrolls Online. They make you keep good track of your weapons and armor in the same fashion. But also I was reading a forum and a lot of people were complaining saying that I don't like keeping track of that kind of stuff. And to me, what I usually say is just start keeping track of it. Especially in MMOs, you find yourself popping back into a town every couple of hours, so why not repair your stuff while you're there? I like the idea that Sam poses of reaching a low point rather than the weapon entirely breaking. But I also liked in how Fallout, when the hunting rifle, for example, or any weapon, reached that final part where it was broken, you could not use it and you had to start using another weapon, which made it a much more desperate attempt to get back to some safe area and repair your stuff. I know Fallout and Elder Scrolls are completely different franchises, but I think that degradation in both work quite well, especially you got a post-apocalyptic scenario here, you're working with whatever resources you can, yet I think Fallout should have weapon and armor degradation in each and every entry. But also you look at Elder Scrolls, naturally you're fighting with swords, war hammers, and so on. Your armor's gonna get damaged, you're constantly bashing enemies' heads in, your weapon's gonna probably get damaged at some point, the durability is gonna go down. So yeah, I think it also has a good fit in this franchise as well. And I think Skyrim did a great job of handling how degradation of enchantment works, but even at that point, sometimes you could buff up a weapon enough through blacksmithing where when your enchantment went away, you were like, all right, whatever, you know, I still got this really powerful weapon, I'll get back to enchanting it at some other point in time. I think this paints what is a small problem in the bigger picture of Bethesda games is that the beginning of these BGS titles are usually a little tough, if I'm honest. You die a lot, you struggle to learn the world itself, but once you get a grip on it, you get into this rhythm, you get into this flow where everything's a little bit easier and possibly too easy. And I think this could be one of the contributing factors. If weapon degradation and armor degradation was constantly a thing that was a threat to you, much like, for example, in the beginning of Fallout where stim packs was a hard resource to come by and you'd have to use food, I think that made it a much more engrossing experience in the beginning. But by the end of the game, I got 400 stim packs and dying has never been an issue. See, ladies and gentlemen, is that these little suggestions we're making, these tiny tweaks we're asking for, as well as things we're asking to keep from previous titles, boil down to one big core issue that has been apparent in many Bethesda Game Studios titles, which is game difficulty. Yes, for many, game difficulty just boils down to the AI and the combat, but it's much more than that in these expansive games like a Bethesda Game Studios games where you can have multiple layered mechanics where, for example, a contributing factor to a game's difficulty could actually be it's weapon degradation, it's armor degradation, amongst many other things, where, for example, stealth is the go-to in Skyrim because of how easy mode it gets at the end of the game. Fixing things like this, once again, all loops back to game difficulty, which is something I want to talk upon much more in an upcoming episode. I want to hear more of your thoughts on game difficulty in general, but I'm just pointing out that once again, as we can see here, it all rolls back to that one core problem. Not saying that weapon and armor degradation is the ultimate fix to this, but see how we're suggesting these types of things because we think they'd be awesome mechanics, but also I think it would add a little bit more on the side than just something cool to do that would immerse us further in the universe. So yeah, overall, I'd love to see this mechanic be implemented in future Elder Scrolls titles. It would add to a little bit more player management, and on top of that, I think it would add to what Bethesda really needs help on more than anything, which is difficulty. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this and see where you guys are going to take the Elder Scrolls conversation next week in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook, the links are in the description down below. Be sure to consider contributing to the Patreon. It helps fuel all the content we create here. Other than that, stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.